The U.S. Department of Agriculture Forest Service has designated invasive species as being one of the 4 primary threats to U.S. forest ecosystems, the others being wildfires, land development, and unmanaged recreation. So what's an invasive species? The USDA would say that a species is invasive to an environment if it is non-native to that environment and can potentially cause havoc with the ecosystem it's invading. Ecosystems exist because of a wobbly balance kept between the species, thereby predator-prey interactions, competition for resources, and abiotic factors such as climate or soil composition.
In their own habitat, otherwise invasive species are similarly regulated and don't cause any major shakeups. However, when they leave their native environment, say by hitching a ride with humans, they might land in an ecosystem that doesn't have the same regulations in place. Often an invasive species is a problem because they will take over the niche of the native species, outcompeting it almost to extinction. Usually, there are no real local predators that can keep the numbers of the invading species at a reasonable level.
Finding a new environment that's rich in resources and low in potential predators, invasive populations can explode and dominate an ecosystem, reducing the overall diversity and possibly causing indirect disturbances. Any species can become invasive under the right circumstances, but some are better at it than others. Organisms that are highly adaptable and reproduce quickly are a natural advantage for taking over a new resource.
The USDA has set a few guidelines forward on how they plan to reduce the effects of invasive species. Most important is preventing an invasion in the first place. That's why Customs asks you if you have any fruit or animals on the way back from a vacation outside the U.S. If a non-native species does find its way into a new environment, they hope they can detect it as early as possible so it has the least time in which to cause any harm. After an invasive species becomes established, the USDA's goal is to quarantine the area and to concentrate on removing the offender. They hope they can rehabilitate the ecosystem, but often the best they can do is limit the spread of the species and try to repair the damage. The USDA is always grateful for help when it comes to watching for invasives. If you'd like to, just go to the link on the screen to find out how. They have a list of native plant species and tips on how to avoid inadvertently spreading species from their natural habitat. It's much easier not to pick up a hitchhiker species than to get rid of one once it's come home with you.
Let's look at our first example of an invasive species. In the past couple of years, a particular type of apple snail, the island apple snail, or Pimenta insularum, has been invading the aquatic ecosystems of most of Florida and southern Georgia. Originating from South America, it thrives in the warmer weather found in the southern United States. These specific snails have been brought to the United States for use in personal aquariums. The release into the wild is what has been believed to spark the invasion of the apple snails.
You can distinguish the island apple snail by its yellowish to brownish coloring of its shell and its larger size compared to the native apple snails of Florida. They can reach lengths of just over 3 inches, with widths more than 2 inches. Island apple snails also have deeper grooves within the whorls found over their shell. They lay groupings of eggs of bright pink coloring and are usually found above the water surface, fixed to hard surfaces.
Once they have been introduced to the environment, they reproduce quickly, laying up to 1,500 eggs every 2 to 3 days during breeding seasons. The main reason the island apple snail is becoming such a problematic species is due to their wide-range palate. When introduced into a system, they eat almost every single kind of aquatic plant around, which other aquatic organisms depend on for their food supply and even for shelter.
Their immense numbers are also increased by the fact that there are not many predators of the apple snail found in the United States. Hawks eat apple snails, however, their main predator is the limpkin. Once established to an area, they can be spread by hitching rides on fishing boats. There is no known way to eradicate this species safely on a widespread scale. The only ecologically friendly way to remove this species is to go into the habitat and remove the adult apple snails and their eggs by hand, which is not that efficient.
What you're looking at here is a prime example of an invasive species. This is a zebra mussel, scientific name Dracaena polymorpha. These tiny mussels range from 3 to 5 centimeters long and get their name from the prominent dark and light striping pattern on their shells. The shape of the zebra mussel shell is generally trigonal or triangular with sharply pointed umbos.
The zebra mussel can come in many different varieties. Here is the life cycle of the zebra mussel. Notice how it has many mobile larval stages, allowing for easy distribution. The invasion into the United States began in Lake St. Clair in 1988. Zebra mussels were picked up in a freshwater European port in the ballast water of a ship, and were later discharged into the Canadian side of Lake St. Clair. By the end of 1995, zebra mussels had invaded waters in 20 of the 38 U.S. states east of the Rocky Mountains. The mussel is now found in the Mississippi River from St. Paul, Minnesota to the mouth of the river in Louisiana. Now they infest most of the major Mississippi River tributaries, including the Ohio, Tennessee, Cumberland, and Arkansas rivers. Human-mediated vectors may be responsible for the zebra mussel dispersal to the isolated inland bodies of water in Connecticut, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, New York, Ohio, Vermont, and Wisconsin.
Crikey! The threat of the zebra mussel lies within its ability to colonize on any hard substrate. They can colonize on a clamshell to such an extent that the clam cannot open its shell to eat. Take a look at this one here. They may attach to slow-moving species such as crayfish and turtles. Mussels will attach to almost any hard surface, either natural or man-made. On boats, they may attach to the hull, motor, or any item immersed in the water. Small zebra mussels may get into the engine cooling systems, causing overheating and other damage.
So what can we do?
Some boats have been prohibited from motoring upstream from an infected site to prevent spreading. These mussels will colonize on drainage pipes, causing blockage and reduced output and increased energy costs. Once zebra mussels become established in a body of water, they are impossible to eradicate with the technology currently available. Many chemicals will kill zebra mussels, but these exotics are so tolerant and tough that everything in the water would have to be poisoned to destroy the mussels. Most commercial water users rely on chemicals such as chlorine, filters, or mechanical scraping to remove mussels from their intake pipes and facilities.